Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Movie Deputy Reviews. If you have not heard of today's movie, don't be too surprised. It's not like a big title. It's not like an A-list title. It's not like one of those ones that's getting all the Hollywood hype, but this is a review that you do not want to miss, especially if you like horror movies. Even if you don't like horror movies, stay with me for this. It's like, don't worry, there's nothing that I'm going to be showing you or sharing with you that would be too creepy. Now, if you can see here on the side here, if you're over here on our YouTube channel, you can see the one of the movie posters for this with some quotes from other critics at the top of the poster. If you just caught the podcast image, the square image, it doesn't have that on there. But don't worry, we're going to be delving deep into this. Hokum is a story of a writer. I mean, I can kind of, align myself with that a little bit. But this one, he's a little bit different. He's trying to finish a conquistador story. Now you're like, wait a minute, you just lost us. Well, don't worry. I'm going to be putting the pieces back together. But this one is definitely getting a guilty rating. Before we get into the trailer, before we get into any of that, some of the quotes on the trailer here are pure nightmare fuel that is deeply unsettling, exquisitely scary. Usually when a movie says that, it sucks. Just being blunt, it usually does. I always say if I laugh during a horror movie, that kills it right then and there, unless it's one of those ones that's supposed to be a comedy type horror movie. But this is not one of those. This one is just suspense horror. And even if you weren't afraid of the most basic of things, of like afraid of the dark, afraid of something in the shadows, afraid of something like this, if you weren't already afraid of those things after this movie, you will be. If you go see this, it will bring out the most primal of fears. It's like, have you ever been alone and felt like somebody was watching you? Have you ever looked out into the dark where you needed to walk out and go somewhere in the dark and you're like, the boogeyman's gonna jump out and get you? This one takes all of those fears and it amplifies them. Now, I went softer there intentionally. This one is full on just creep fest. This is horror in a way that we have not seen horror for a long time. It's not overly gory, but it is creepy as hell. That's about the worst word I'll use here on the show. But if you weren't already afraid of some of the most basic fears, this, like I said, you will be after watching this. Come along with me on this trailer. Like I said, I'm not going to do anything to scare you here in the review. The trailer, there's a few intense scenes, but nothing that's going to be too much. And then we're going to, of course, talk more about the story of this gentleman who is part of this. I'm being very careful not to give too much away because there is, like I said, there's something special in a really messed up way here. Not special like amazing, but special like Hollywood has not done this with a creepy movie like this in ages. The new Mummy movie got us a little bit. The Bride, a little bit, but not to the level of Hokum. This one just it's just a total creep fest. But let's check out the trailer and then we're going to talk some more about this movie. Admittedly, when I went to the theater and saw this, I had not looked up any information on Hokum prior to going to see it. So I had not even watched the trailers and stuff ahead of this at all, which may be surprising to some of you, but this one was just one of those ones that I wanted to just see it just to see it. And I think I had seen a trailer or two before some other movies started and things like that, but I didn't want to get too caught up into them. And like I said, this one's kind of easy to get caught up in a lot of different ways.
Time in Ireland.
My folks came here for their honeymoon. Always wanted to come back.
Why didn't they?
I don't know if you've noticed, but there are some oddballs walking around this place.
There are worse things than strangers out there, Yank.
One of the members of staff is missing.
What about the honeymoon suite?
It's always locked.
I'm getting a weird feeling. Something feels off.
I can't find a way out. I keep hearing something. I think there's someone down here. Can you hear me?
Get me out of here, Dan!
I hope you thoroughly absorbed that for what it was. I can't say enjoyed just because of the type of story that this is. Now, I will say Hokum has very much the feel of 1408 in it. It is just this dude that is trapped in this room and he can't get out. But the reason that he's trapped is not what you might think. And so, as you saw in the trailer, he is going back to this hotel in Ireland because that's where his parents had their honeymoon. And he lost his mother at a young age, and so his dad raised him. And after they both passed away, he wanted to return there to spread their ashes. Well, it seems pretty simple and kind of understanding. And then while he's there, somebody goes missing. One of the hotel staff goes missing. And as he starts to put the pieces together, he realizes that there is something a lot more unsettling. And it crosses a lot of different boundaries into alcohol, drugs, just the paranormal, things that go bump in the night. And like I said, there is a creep factor of this one that just sets it up. There, as much as like I said, this one has genuine jump scares. I've never been like scared by a movie that still holds true, but I'm guilty of like going the whole jump scare thing like that, but never to the point of like nightmares or anything like that. And there are jump scares. There are things that it's like, even when you know something is going to happen, when it's going into the dark and you're just, and it's just that quiet anticipation with some soft music in the background, and it builds up and you know something's happening, and bam, it's there. And it hits at different times. Sometimes the suspense is a little longer than you'd think, and sometimes it just sneaks up on you. While this one is exquisite in its horror presentation, like I said, there hasn't been one quite done like this in a long time. But while saying that, there were parts of this movie I was struggling to stay awake. You're like, wait a minute, how can you go from one to the other? Because it's like, here you're talking about this horrifically creepy, just mind-messing movie about this author, his name is that he's trying to finish this trilogy story, and so he's come up here to try to finish this. And he thinks he's just coming up here to take care of his parents, to go somewhere quiet, to work. And he gets caught up in this if you could mix the 1408 with like The Shining a little bit, with just a little bit of Pennywise, maybe. There's no actual clowns in this, but there is a bunny that you'll never look at people in rabbit suits the same way ever again, especially after looking at this thing. You kind of got a glimpse of it in the trailer if you're over here on our YouTube channel. But if not, check out one of these trailers. If you like scary movies, if you want those jump scares, if you want just that eerie, the crawling up the back of your neck, goosebumps, just where it just kind of hangs on with you long after the movie's done type feeling. I mean, there were people leaving at the end that looked like they'd been crying. And I was like, I mean, I wasn't like at that point. Like I said, at parts, this one was just cinematically, it just grasps you and you want to pay attention to it. But like I said, there were parts of this movie where I wasn't even tired going into this, and I'm sitting there going, where I'm paying attention, but it's so slow, and I'm like just struggling to keep my eyes open. And that's the only reason that this does not have a much higher score. I had it kept that creep factor up throughout the movie without those long, and I'm not talking like little filler spots. I'm talking where the filler stuff is like long and drawn out to where it's completely predictable what's happening, and you're just kind of going. And then the background music is just soft enough, almost like white noise type music, where you're just like struggling to stay awake. And then something else happens, like, okay, I'm paying attention. And of course, I was paying attention the whole time. I mean, I never fell asleep during the movie, but it was just one of those things where I was like struggling to keep the eyes up. It's like, okay, get on to the next thing here. Let's go. I so wanted to give this movie a higher rating, just purely on the deputy scale. Personally, just because the moments I was feeling tired, I was struggling a lot more. If there hadn't been those long drawn, and I understand why they were there. If there hadn't been those long drawn out pieces of this movie, honestly, this would probably be in the 8s. Just because it was exactly what it was supposed to be. There was no pretense to this. There was no like other thing going on. There was just the simplicity of the movie, but sometimes that makes it too simple. I don't know what they could have done to maybe put more into that, but like I said, if you cross the 1408 and The Shining, you get something close to what you have here. Not exactly, but you get something close. So if you are a horror fan, pay attention to the story, because there doesn't appear to be a lot of tie-in from the original Conquistador story that it opens with to the Conquistador story at the very end. But then as you kind of put the pieces together that they don't do until the end of the movie, it makes a lot more sense of why all of this happened. Now, I can't tell you what that is because that would be a major spoiler, but if you go to this one and you feel like it's just not going anywhere and you want to give up on it, stick around to the end. If you like horror movies, stick around to the end, because there are some answers and it's going to leave you thinking. You're going to walk out of the movie going, huh? But then the more you think about it, the more it makes sense, and you start to replay it through your head and you're like, oh. So it's not one that you're going to immediately like go, oh, okay, that made sense. This one's going to stick with you for a while. So if you are a horror fan, a suspense fan, just a creep factor fan, check out Hokum. If not, this is one that you could easily skip. Score-wise, obviously I'm giving this a guilty rating. If you hadn't already figured it out, yeah, guilty. Score-wise, I'm going to surprise you guys a little bit with this one. I'm only coming in at a 5.25 out of 10 on the deputy scale, only because the fact that it is not more of a presentation of what the story is. It's more of one of those ones. This is a deep thought. This is an intense thought type movie. It's not one of those ones that explains itself to you, but it gives you enough of the pieces that you can put it together on your own. Now, there's people that's way too much work, but there's other people out there that like that whole creep factor type story that just, like I said, leaves you with that feeling up the back of your neck. This is definitely one of those. So if you have seen this one already, I would love to know what you think. If you don't like these types of stories, I would skip this one. But as always, I hope that you've enjoyed this adventure that I've brought you along with me on. I hope if you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button and turn on that little notification bell to get the latest and the greatest deputy content. But as always, I'll be back with you soon, and I'll have another surprise for you soon. Bye.